current Poet Laureate of Benicia, and I am so happy to see you all here today for this reading. I have a couple of announcements to make before we get started, and then I'll tell some of the story of the Going the Distance column, and then we will go into the readings from that newspaper venue. Announcements are that there are several events more in the realm of poetry going on this month. Next Sunday at 6 p.m. at Bookshop Benicia, there will be live poetry being read, and a number of you have signed up for that. And I'm sure that if you still want to read, you can contact Tom Stanton, who is pulling this event together and will be emceeing. On April 30th, on Zoom, we will have the Love Poetry Celebration. And many of you know that since 2004, we have had an annual love poetry contest here in Benicia that draws in poets and poems from many continents. And we found during the COVID years that it was much easier to hold this event on Zoom, or at least possible. And it's become quite a Zoom event. So please be there. If you have entered the contest, you may be a winner. You won't find out until that Sunday. And if you have not entered the contest, come anyway. We'll have an open mic. You do need to sign up for it in advance, and you'll get to hear all kinds of love poetry that day. And of course, Joel Fallon, our first Poet Laureate in Benicia, is the one who founded, started, and got rolling this love poetry contest. And if you need the link for it, it is a Zoom event. You can check on the library website, or you can email me. And I did put my email address, my personal email address in the chat near the beginning, with the notation that if you want to contribute something to Going the Distance and have not, you can send those contributions to me and at that email address. And if you have not been reading or receiving the Going the Distance columns, you can get on the list to receive them by sending me an email. And that's maybe where I should begin. I know that for many people in Benicia and the outlying areas, Going the Distance has been a companion since April 1st, 2020. On March 19th, California became the first state to issue a stay-at-home order because of COVID-19. And on that date in 2020, when we knew everything was going to change, I started an email to the editor of the Benicia Herald, who was enthusiastic about my suggestion that we have a column of poetry and short prose, because poets and writers need to be able to express themselves, and with no public venues for in-person readings or sharings, this might be the way to go. And at that time, the column was designed to kind of see us through COVID. We thought that we would, be sharing writings on what was happening to us, our reactions, how we coped, and just reflect on all of these things together. And we thought the column would end when there was either a vaccine or a cure available. Well, we went through 2020, and many of you are aware that we published a book called Yearning to Breathe Free, which is the collection of the newspaper columns from April 1st through Election Day 2020. But the column has gone on, and we changed the subtitle from yearning to breathe free, to going the distance, not there yet, because we realized, and it became achingly clear that the issues, the questions, the concerns that we became so aware of during the time that we were isolated from one another had not gone away, would not go away without some concerted effort and a sustaining community to keep those efforts going. So we're still into it. We're still not there yet, but we're still addressing personal issues, societal issues, climate change, embedded racism, economic hardship, and threats to democracy. So in the reading today, we're going to start after the election in 2020. We thought everything might change after the election, but so many things were left unresolved. And this will be, again, a view, a journal of what we have been going through. And coming out of that is how we can support one another. And many of you here this afternoon, of course, know each other. I'm going to be functioning as the page turner, moving us on from one date of entry to another. But as I look through, and as I looked through originally the list of people who are reading, it is an impressive list. We have prolific poets. We have poets laureate, current and past. We have, people from many, many backgrounds. We have, a blogger, and we have a couple of attorneys, someone who writes lyrics to songs. So many different ways that we come together. And I'm not going to go into deep introductions for each reader. If you have comments that you want them to see or hear, put them in chat, and that will be a good way to keep record. And I'm also not going to do the deeper introductions because this is not so much a normal poetry reading where somebody reads a poem they have polished and is just incredibly good and has gone through many evolutions. The poems that you will hear today were written in the moment, at the time. They reflect where we were on a specific date. So I invite everybody to think back and think about these dates and how far back we go and how we are still going. And I will be reading the opening poem, which appeared in the column on November 11th, 2020. And 2020, we were still in that state of social distancing. The presidential election was over. We were facing into a holiday season. Thanksgiving was coming, when we didn't know, or we were unsure about how safe it would be to spend that time with dear friends and family. I wrote the poem Maybe Today with my grandson in mind. I haven't cried yet about the coronavirus and the fears and limitations and death and loss and the glowering menace on the horizon that might be the ash of lives and woodlands, but could just as easily be the existential omen for humanity, henceforth and forever shrouded in pandemic. I haven't cried yet, but yesterday I saw a white butterfly in mercurial dance mode above the sidewalk my grandson and I once walked to and from his grade school. When his friends would join us, babbling and running, when the sky glinted blue with sunlight, and dragonflies escorted us into magic realms. I haven't cried yet, but today may be the day. Our next reading moves us into December of 2020, December 16th, and Louise Moises will be reading.
To set the scene a little bit for this poem, I went back and thought about what I was feeling at that time. I remember that in March 2020, the Olympics had been canceled, something I'd really been looking forward to. In August, the baseball teams were playing to a stadium filled with cutouts. There were no crowds. In September, when Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, the people at her funeral were in little isolated squares. No one was touching. At the supermarket, I avoided going down an aisle where somebody else was shopping. When we stood in line, we were 6 feet apart. No one spoke. We waited for the checker to wipe the conveyor belt clean with an antiseptic before we were called forward to put our groceries there. I was feeling lost. My garden club was meeting on Zoom. My improv dance was meeting on Zoom. My friends from my poetry group that met at the library, we were meeting via email. The libraries were closed. And so I was feeling this loss of contact. And that's when I wrote, Moving Through a Crowd. I have forgotten how to move through a crowd, how shoulder to shoulder to jostle for a place in line, how to bump into someone in the aisle where we are surveying bags of coffee. I have forgotten to say, excuse me, and which coffee is your favorite? I have forgotten how to sit in theater seats, discreetly elbowing the person next to me, vying for an armrest, to share a box of popcorn, each of us reaching for a handful. I have forgotten how to touch a hand, a shoulder, wrap an arm around a waist, feel the comfort of a hug. I have forgotten how to offer a friend a sip of my drink. Try it, you might like it. To set a table for the group, 12 members of the club, come for tea. I have forgotten how to move through a crowd.
We'll move now into January of 2021. Kathleen Herman will be reading a poem she wrote on January 15th.
Democracy mattered to my dad. As a World War II vet, it was so important to him to teach me my solemn and sacred responsibility as a citizen to vote in free and fair democratic elections. So naturally, on January 6th of 2021, I thought of my dad. High hopes. In November 1960, a bitter cold morning breaking over Boston, Dad took me with him, just me. This was no ordinary Tuesday morning. Warm in my black and white plaid wool coat and matching hat, Dad in his cap-length overcoat, neck scarf, and brimmed hat. We stood in the silent queue outside Town Hall. No children, commanded the woman at the door. Dad was ready. My daughter will see me vote for the first Irish Catholic president. Sorry, sir, no children. But she's good as gold, he pleaded, his look warning me I'd better be. Gripping Dad's hand, we walked the lengths of several corridors, fluorescent lights glaring from high ceilings, a crush of grown-ups around me, heels tapping worn wooden floors, pilgrims all living the dream. We stepped into the booths, Dad and me. He pointed out the labels on the polling machine. Republican, Richard M. Nixon. Democratic, John F. Kennedy, and pulled the lever. In November 2020, I voted for the second Irish Catholic president, flushed with Dad's pride, coupled with dire urgency. We thought we were the chosen ones, the great American experiment, showing the world how it can be. I never imagined this. In January 2021, I closed my eyes. All I want is to hold Dad's hand and believe.
Thank you. We move now to March 5th, 2021, and we will hear from Brandon Green.
Sorry, my son just got bit by a dog, so it's on the phone. Apologies.
Okay.
So the poem that I'll be reading is called "Young, Black, and Powerful." It's actually lyrics to a song that I wrote during this time, and I think it's as relevant now as it was when I wrote it, given everything that's happening in Tennessee, and given sort of the racial reckoning that wasn't that came after George Floyd. And so I will read that now. This is the song that I sing my son to sleep before the world convinces him that he's just one of the sheep, prone for the slaughter, fit for a sale, with the IQ barely tipping the scale. It's his fault if he's living in hell, or he's destined to fail, not destined to do. Only destined to serve, not destined to rule. Complexity is not a thing for a complexion like you. Dream small is my suggestion for you. That profession you're into, please reconsider that. Get some hoop dreams over there where the niggas at. Want to be an astronaut? How the hell you figure that? Outer space, you ain't never been out the state. To which my son replies, and still I rise. I was raised by parents who taught me those are lies. Stay 10 toes down, do not compromise. Young, black, and powerful is my battle cry. The cops that kill us, the block could kill us. No, grocery stores, how we eat and shop to kill us. Got a son, a godson, and a niece in my village. Got to give them tips for surviving the pillage. Y'all won't murder mine. Young, black, and powerful, etched on the wall so they know how to answer when called. When the world gives Don Lemons, be the son of the shade. Activists ain't born, they made. How can we reform the rage? Every time we adorn the front page, it's from bullets to spray. All the elders yell and pray, but we prayed enough. Disenchanted, we've been praying enough. Hunted by the hundreds, sober or blunted, respectable or despicable, our lives are stunted. Oftentimes by the government, we paid the tax. There's no innocence when the face is black.
Thank you. And sadly, it is still, as you said, so relevant. We'll move a little farther ahead in March to the 14th, and Katrina Monroe will be reading for us.
The title of this poem is So Sorry. The beginning of the poem references something that happened very early in COVID in April 2020. My brother-in-law, my husband's brother, died on the East Coast of COVID, but as it was often true in those days, he was not diagnosed correctly until the last minute, and there were no known ways to help him through it. And we only found out the diagnosis 24 hours in advance of his death. It took us it took me 10 months to write this poem, along with other things that happened in the intervening 10 months, the droughts, the fires, the social unrest, the deaths. And so the title of the poem is So Sorry. To our brother, I'm so sorry that in the early days of the pandemic, you were misdiagnosed, mismedicated, misdirected, until you suffered alone in an ICU 3,000 miles away with only hours to live. An angel nurse holding an iPad let us see and talk to you, you mostly unconscious and clearly in pain. We whispered our love, longed to touch, but let you go instead. Later, privately indulging our grief, extending condolences to your love of 51 years over inadequate phone lines. To the thousands whose lives were suspended in the furnace of California fires, I'm sorry we couldn't do more than we did. To the millions who marched to protest the wrongful deaths of our brothers and sisters, I'm sorry that we didn't do more when we could. All of you were us. The names of those hurt or lost fill a sorry jar to overflowing, like ravaged bodies piled in a makeshift morgue or charred ruins dumped in a too small landfill. How can it be that we need more to order more sorry jars? As I cowardly hunker down, avoiding a vicious virus, do I need to also apologize for wanting an overflowing hope jar instead? Thank you.
Kayla Lewis Ross will bring us the poem that she had published on June 20th, 2021.
Akila, can you wave your hand, please? I'm trying to find you. Let me see. Akila, again, can you wave your hand? There you are. Okay, I see you now. I'm asking you to unmute yourself and.
Oh, sorry. I too was dealing with the child situation.
Oh, I was having trouble. There's too many people. I was having trouble finding everybody.
Yes, I'm here, and thank you so much for the opportunity again. Rooted, this is a poem that I was actually sitting in my walker. A walker is my walking buddy right now. I was injured in 2020, and thankfully in January of this year, I was able to get surgery on my knee. I'm still healing, and it is hard to remember how to walk. My body is still trying to figure out how to do it. But this was a yay, Johanna! I'm so excited. This poem, I was actually sitting and waiting for my ride for my husband to come and get me after a physical therapy or a medical appointment. And this was the first time that I actually was able to sit and be still. And I heard the sound of the trees, and my body just felt calm. Then all of a sudden, different things started coming in my mind. And this is how this poem was formulated. Today, as I sit in my walker, waiting for my ride, the rustling trees tease a sense of calm to my being. Nature has something to say. It urges me to listen. But there's a tug of war raging within, fire burning. It festers like hot coals. An ulcer has metastasized, oozing goo to the root. The wind wants to blow it all away, waiting for another day. But days are short, and my patience is waning. I just want to write about nature and trees and find family lines on ancestor.com, because they're still waiting to be recognized, given what's due. 40 acres and a mule. Reparations seem so far. Seeds don't have a clue how to grow. If the powers all around have something to say, the future bleeds death, and evil continues to corrupt. How many stories must we tell for people to really listen? Thank you.
Sherry Sheehan will read next from June 23rd, 2021.
I was inspired by the photograph, so I guess this can be considered an ekphrastic poem. Not there yet. A foggy sunrise, a sulfur sunset, an oncoming fire. What are we driving into? Morning arriving, the day leaving, a forest burning? How do we find our way to the truth of what's happening in this not yet post-pandemic fire season of a world? Thank you.
We move on in the calendar to July 2nd, 2021, and Juanita Martin will bring the poem that was published on that date.
Hello, everybody. The poem that I'm going to be reading was inspired a little bit because of Juneteenth, and I was supposed to get it in June, but unfortunately didn't get published until July. But I was thinking about different things during that time. I was thinking about the things that were going on during that year, and the pandemic wasn't so bad at that time because I was doing really well. I had gotten my first booster and had went to my first concert in person. So I was happy to get out of the house, and I was happy to be able to celebrate and be places. So I went to my first event, and I wanted to write something for Juneteenth. So this is what came out of this, of my wanting to get out and wanting to just express my feelings about Juneteenth. So this is written and it's called Strong, Gifted, and Black. Celebrate with me, brothers and sisters, for love binds us together. As we shine our light, talents emerge, dignity swells. We walk a little haughty, battle ready, survival prone. We stand proud, heads held high, above the racism that choke our breath. Inconsistencies of America can't keep us down. Shall we count the cost? Legacy of 400 plus slaves that brought us here. Today, our heritage thrives. Kamala, Obama, we stand free, eyes to the past, feet to the future, while voices of poetry resonate, our heart's desire to keep on rising, strong, gifted, and Black.
Thank you. Moving into September, Kathy Dana's poem was published on September 15th, 2021.
Hi, Jan. This is a poem in which I was reflecting about how it was in the beginning of the pandemic and how it was then later. It's called No Turning Back. At the beginning, a stillness, a soft stillness, a calming quiet seemed to settle over the land. The news that we had slid into a worldwide pandemic sent tidal shockwaves around the globe. It rocked our world. Schools closed, shops closed, offices closed, everything non-essential closed. That's when the stillness arrived. Streets were blocked off, called slow streets, to make room for cyclists, skateboarders, pedestrians. People smiled as they stepped into a driveway or crossed a street to make room for other folks walking dogs or pushing strollers. Teddy bears and multicolored hand-drawn hearts hung in windows. Whole squares of sidewalk featured carefully drawn hearts, flowers, and slogans like, "We can do it together." From porches and second-story windows, musicians sang and played their hearts out. Health workers, police, and firefighters were hailed as heroes. People said, "Thank you for being here," as they left markets or restaurants with bags full of food. I thought then that the pandemic might be a blessing in disguise, a chance to pause, to reconsider what is important, to recognize we need each other, depend on each other, to know with certainty that we must love and take care of each other. I thought then that the pandemic could be a great awakening, a dawning of solidarity worldwide. But now, a year and a half later, patience has worn thin or vanished altogether. Appreciation and generosity have been buried by a landslide of frustration, fear, rage, and despair. Desperation is on parade as cars, SUVs, and trucks race through intersections like machines of the apocalypse, drivers looking straight ahead, eyes glazed. Worldwide trauma has poured cortisol into billions of brains. Hope's gone MIA. We need to dig through the rubble of our broken dreams, broken hearts, dig deep to find that shining center beneath the pain. The shining center like a golden thread connecting us to heaven and earth, to the something greater that holds us all, the life force, the creative spirit, the soul, the ever unfolding potential of life. There is still hope buried in each heart. There is still love buried in each heart. It is when we touch it that we are healed, and we are a healing of the world.
Yes.
Thank you.
Roger Straw will next read from his poem published on November 12th, 2021.
If you know me, I'm kind of a news hound. And in my house, you would catch me watching the television and reading the papers every morning and every evening. Maybe I'm addicted, I don't know. Anyway, I wrote this poem on one of those kinds of days, the day after our midterm elections in 2021. 11 months had gone by since the January 6th insurrection attempt, and yet the nation was still reeling from it. The midterms showed mixed results, and there was some cause for a hopeful turn of events under a Democratic Senate. But the daily news, morning and evening, was filled over and over and over again with the Trump show and the MAGA extremists. Disheartening. On reflection, more than disheartening, deeply damaging for us as a nation. I watched the news one morning and then started a load of dirty laundry, and I wrote, the stain of this sad moment. Stained. I can't get it out of my head, my heart, my life. Stained. Blotted now forever, stained, unwashable, erasable, unyielding, never again whole. A nation lost to a former glory, a glory imagined at least, perceived perhaps, glimpsed in grand colors of red, white, and blue, black, white, red, yellow, and brown, of every gender, age, posture, and faith, now stained, overrun by its own, colored in neon by a new division unseen since the days of blue and gray, when death engulfed us on battlefields and gave a nation cause to want to forget, but to never forget, and to raise again in this ugly moment the specter of Confederate racism and sordid supposed supremacy. A capital offense, the insurrective stain on the heart of democracy, indelible. We are in tatters again.
Ramona Lapierre will close out the year of 2021 for our reading today with her poem from December 5th.
I need to catch my breath after Roger. That was incredible. The theme of loss that began with my mom's death in April 2020 continued through 2021. I reached a milestone birthday, the first without my mother, and 10 days later marked the 1-year anniversary of her passing. Also that April, Beverly Cleary, author of Ramona, the children's book series, died at age 104, and former US Vice President and Senator from my birthplace of Minnesota, Walter Mondale, passed at 93. In August, death came too soon for singer-songwriter Nancy Griffith, age 68, a favorite of my mother's. Her music floats through my fondest memories with Mom. After a sudden illness in September, my father-in-law died in October. Our hearts were draped in layers and layers of sorrow. Threads in our tapestry seemed to be unraveling. As December approached, remarkable images of the Northern Lights were making the rounds on social media, reminding me of my youth and a time gone by. I found myself wandering in the wilderness of what ifs and wondering what now and what next. The thought arose, I ought to go to Minnesota. So in November in California, I wrote my poem, I ought to go to Minnesota. I ought to go to Minnesota to dance in knee-deep snow, beneath the phosphorescent green aurora borealis glow. There is shimmer above and shiver below 10,000 lakes. I really ought to go, to wander, not lost, in the shadows of birches that fall like an unwritten score, lining the virgin white page of the forest. My footprints form notes on the floor, an unfolding story told as it plays, as I wander not lost on a cold winter day. I'm there in the mist where memories stay, there where I was born. And here in California, measures counted in years, joyful crescendos, tremolos of tears. I come to the coda with mezzo forte fear. So, I ought to go to Minnesota to dance in knee-deep snow beneath the phosphorescent green aurora borealis glow.
Yes, thank you. We'll move now into the calendar year 2022 with Tom Stanton's poem that was published on February 23rd.
Hello. Barely have a voice, but here it goes. Intro, going off script a little. So I do remember that day. It was in a time when I would take walks to preserve whatever was left of who I thought I might be. Many, all of us, of course, suffered those same incoming shocks. Earthquakes all around me. And so I would go out and I'd walk and I'd try and find the bigger birds, the egrets, the eagles and the hawks. And the vultures, of course, would have no problem finding me. So it was good. And I wanted to feel better somehow so that I could write it all. It actually seemed as though the poetry was going to completely stop. On that note, this was born of that time. Origami. Origami, origami, swan. But I wanted a heron. Can you give me one? Can you give me one little heron? Egret, ho, oh, snowy egret, diminutive, feathery son. Are you the one, the little heron that goes to this song? And if they unfolded you, would you, little heron, snowy heron, would you know? Would you know? And if they unfolded you and laid that paper upon a table, would they then see the forming of the wings, how each fold in turn formed this very bird? Would you know it formed? And when folded together, for a very brief moment, little snowy egret, little snowy heron, you sow, you now, you growing, you.
Our next poet that we will hear from is Becky Bishop White. She'll be reading the poem that was published on June 5th, 2022.
Hello there. All right. Introduction to my poem. This poem was written to an event that happened on May 24th, 2022, when a mass shooting occurred at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas, where an 18-year-old named Salvador Ramos, a former student at the school, fatally shot 19 students who were fourth graders between the ages of 9 and 11 years old, and 2 teachers who were in their 40s, and 17 others who were injured but survived. Law enforcement took an unconceivably long time to enter the classroom and eliminate the threat and rescue the pitifully few survivors. Ramos had recently turned 18 and thus was able to legally purchase 2 semi-automatic rifles. He was at his grandmother's home where he lived and had gotten into an argument with her about his failure to graduate from high school. During that argument, he texted a 15-year-old girl in Germany he knew only from an online forum, saying, "I'm a air out," and that he was going to shoot up an elementary school. He then shot his grandmother in the face, and she incredibly survived and took off in a pickup truck for the school. When I saw on the news his text, "I'm a air out," I had to look up what the slang meant. I'm a, of course, is short for I'm gonna or I'm going to. And to air out means to shoot up a place or clear a crowded room by pulling a semi-automatic. I titled this poem, "I'm a air out." Not the sheets you float on your bed, fresh off the clothesline, full of sunshine. Not the breezy drive in a classic convertible you pretend not to show off as you visit Napa wineries. Not the walk you take to clear the cobwebs of your mind after a hard day's work. No, it's what the shooter emailed someone before he permanently let the air out from 19 children and 2 adults. We held our collective breath for Uvalde, a Texas town most of us never heard of, now forever in our collective consciousness. We're still holding our breath while the real killers are at large. Gun-obsessed Americans airing out thoughts, prayers, and phobias. Thank you.
Mary Eichbauer's poem appeared on June 15th, a little later that same month.
Thank you, Mary Susan. And Becky, thank you for your powerful words. I couldn't say it better, so I won't attempt to, but yes, my poem was inspired by the same event. However, I could have written it every day since, because somehow it doesn't stop happening. It's called Wordless. Another angry man tells his story with bullets. There are no more words, but there are always more bullets. There is always more blood in someone else's veins to paint a picture on asphalt, on linoleum, on carpeting, where bloodstains soak in deep. You can't get blood out of carpeting, and you can't put it back into veins or hearts. You can't unsay those explosive words, the words that stay unsaid. Thank you.
We will move on to July 17th, 2022, and Nancy Tolan will read the poem that was published that day.
We all remember the great toilet paper panic of 2020, the global toilet paper shortages, those empty grocery shelves, the panic buying that shoppers faced early on during the pandemic. The Baltimore Sun commented on the sudden demand for toilet paper and even coined the phrase, the white gold rush. In the summer of 2022, I wrote this light-hearted poem based on an amusing personal experience. I titled the poem Ultra Plush. Cushiony, soft, absorbent, 3-ply toilet paper, Definitely no substitute for quilted Northern Ultra Plush. Imagine my surprise when a package of Ultra Plush unscented bathroom tissue appeared on my front porch unannounced. 12 mega rolls, equaling 48 regular rolls. The package was left on my porch with no name, no address, and no return address, delivered as though pulled from the grocery store shelf and not shipped in the usual cardboard box that Amazon uses. Nothing on the package except a 3-inch by 3-inch white shipping label with carrier info E 4380 2:53 p.m. GMW W plus ambient, yet no identification of the carrier. A quick check with my neighbors to see if they ordered the toilet paper. No, they had not. One laughed and said, "You've just won the pandemic lottery." A phone call to Amazon did not solve the mystery either. Perhaps someone sent it to you as a gift. Oh yeah, perhaps from a secret admirer. We both laughed. Well, Amazon did not send it. You can legally keep the package because apparently it was meant for occupant. Oh, right. 12 mega rolls of cushiony soft, absorbent, 3-ply TP might just be enough to cover my secret admirer's house.
Thank you. We will move now to Claire J. Baker and the poem that appeared on July 27th, 2022. You'll need to unmute, Claire.
Okay, oops,
Good.
wait. Oh, there we go. Okay. My poem came out of reading such bad news of bad news, statistics that go along with bad news, just way too much. And I say, we can't give up. It's really rough, but we can't give up. The harp of hope. When we are numbed, shocked, clear through from tragedies in our home and our home of homes, may we find ways to keep activating the harp strings of hope, even using, if we must, tongue tip and front teeth to bring forth jingles, sweeps of rapture, a lullaby to live by. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving now into August of 2022, Dee Allen will present the poem that was published on August 3rd.
This poem was brought on by the Supreme Court's decision to outlaw the long-standing legalized abortion that women in this country deserve or are entitled to. This one is called Regression. Give me an S, give me a U, give me a P, give me an R, give me an E, give me an M, give me an E, give me a C, give me an O, give me a U, give me an R, give me a T. What's that spell? Well, America's still the land of freedom, provided that men in jet black robes behind pulpits, who will never experience the pain of childbirth and bringing a fresh new human into our world, propagate our species, can control women's bodies with reams of laws and outlawed clinics, closed for business. The urban back alleys are about to get some. Theocratic regression back to the good old days that never were. America's experiencing a rebirth. Order of the day, denial of personal choice, contained bodily autonomy, breed on demand. Thank the judges, ladies. They gifted you hell. Give them the same and stronger. Your womb, your choice, both at stake. And that poem was called Regression. From this mic to your ears, I'm Dee Allen. Thanks for listening. Happy Poetry Month.
Hey, very good.
All right, we turn now to Eliza Lee Salomon, who will read the poem that appeared on October 14th, 2022.
Twice there. Yes, so this poem, I felt I had to write something after watching the Ken Burns TV documentary, The U.S. and the Holocaust. And writing this poem brought me back to when I was young and watched similar documentaries on TV. My parents allowed me to watch because they, I grew up an only child and got to do participate in adult conversations, etc. I've retitled it After Watching the U.S. and the Holocaust. What did I learn from watching the Ken Burns TV documentary that I didn't already know? Just this: 1 in 3 of Europe's Jewish adults survived, but only 1 in 10 Jewish children survived the Holocaust. My parents were 16 years old when they were rescued out of Vienna, no longer Austria, late in 1938 for Otto, early in 1939 for Melita, to British Mandate Palestine. Are they counted as children? My mother lost her mother. My dad lost his favorite cousin, Gerda. These 2 losses are among the 100 or so listed in my family's genealogy record of relatives who perished too soon during World War II. How unfathomable is the acute pain of those who remember lost loved ones. How incomprehensible is the slaughter of fellow human beings. The flower of European Jewry, Daddy used to say, emphasizing the 3 salient words. By the time I was 12 years old, growing up in Seat Pleasant, Maryland, I understood the untranslatable and inexplicable grief that this expression for the lost 6 million described. let me just say one more thing. Writing this poem felt like there's a lot more poetry coming behind this one that I still need to write. Thank you.
Yeah. Good.
We will turn now to Ilian Baltodano. She will read her poem that appeared on November 13th of 2022.
Dear poet friends, dear poet friends, I remember when I went to visit the immigration office in San Francisco, California, to update my visa. I brought with me the receipts of the hospital where my daughter was born, the Moffitt Hospital at UCSF. I was not a burden to this country, and I promised myself I was going to be an asset, as many other immigrants. My respect to those looking for safety, as I did once. Here's my poem, and the title is Immigrant, Plow the Land. Immigrant, come. Come with your strong hands, with your unreachable dreams, with your fears and tireless struggle, with your culture. Come to nurture the drought of this land. Come to caress the earth. Open the grooves like half-open lips. Fill the creases with the seed of your yearnings. Soak the furrows with tears and blood. Sing to Mother Earth with your guitar, with your desires. This land will flourish, even if later they snatch the harvest from you, even if later they seize you for being undocumented. Mother Earth, the mother of all creatures, Mother Earth gives life to those who caress her skin. For Mother Earth, we're all equal. Thank you. This is Ilian Baltodano.
Wow.
We move now into 2023. D.L. Lang's poem appeared on January 8th of this year, and she is not able to be here with us tonight or this afternoon. So Johanna will read D.L.'s poem and then go into her own poem from February 1st. Johanna.
Thank you, Mary Susan. I really like this poem. It's a prose poem, and it's about the power outages that we had back in December and January. Apparently, DL was affected by that, as many of us were, but somehow she finds something hopeful in all of this. Fire, water, wind. There is a sense of peace in a power outage. It instantly brings you into the present moment. Lack of electricity makes the world smaller. The worries of a normal schedule vanish when the outside world cannot reach you. As the windstorm raged outside our home, I was comforted by flickering candlelight. There was nothing to do but wait in silence, watching the flames dance in the drafty air. I drifted off into sleep, enveloped by this peace. I awoke to find our fence had collapsed, revealing a vast expanse of nature behind us, opening up to a view heretofore hidden. This same field catches fire in the summer, likely due to teens sneaking celebratory fireworks, which I've witnessed popping over the fence line, bursting violently in the air over my skylight, with a rainbow of colorful sparks in the night, sounding like a war zone, rattling my nerves. Most days, the fence serves as a superhighway for squirrels transporting nuts in the daylight, or nocturnal possums traveling neighborhoods. It's a watchtower for sparrows lined up like sentries, resting between their visits to neighborhood feeders. When they trimmed back the trees after the fire, the fence took its first injuries from a falling log, ricocheting haphazardly before slamming the wall. Today it rests on the hillside like a fallen soldier, bringing the outside world just a little bit closer, blurring man-made boundaries just a little more, reminding us of our fragility within life's storms.
Beautifully read.
So now, this is my poem, and I wrote it in January. At the end of January, I was on a walk near the end of the day. The sun was setting, and I saw a beautiful flock of robins in a tree, maybe 20 robins, and I was amazed. It was still winter, and I thought, my gosh, here are these harbingers of spring already. How cool. So I went home and I was going to write a poem about that. And then I turned on my computer and I read that there'd been another mass shooting. And so here I was about to write about these beautiful robins, but I also was just really saddened by this news. And so this poem came to me. A flock of robins. Near sunset, I find a flock of robins perched on the limbs of a bare tree, the tree shining, decorated with their beauty. Each robin's breast lit crimson gold in the late afternoon light. Each bird a carnelian stone set against a silver blue sky. Red robins glowing like lanterns in the tree's dusky branches. Later, I will read about another mass shooting and imagine a flock of robins trying to fly away, their wings riddled with bullets, their breasts the color of blood red rubies, the light in each lantern suddenly blown out. Thank you.
Yep.
Gail Wasserman will present the poem that was published on March 8th of this year.
Hi, everyone. I guess with the pandemic allegedly ending, which I'm not sure it's ended or not, I still can't really tell. It didn't cease to amaze me how the inflation was incredible. So I wrote about what was going on with PGE, and some of my other poems were about other types of inflation. It's freezing out there. PGE are sitting high and mighty, such a large company, or should I say a monopoly. And us folks are laying down on the ground while COVID and the flu are swarming all around. We're left with no choice but to pay your exorbitant price just to stay warm on a cold winter night. PGE, it's freezing out there. Where's your heart? The executives need to part with their raises and bonuses this year that'll lower the cost of electricity for your customers. It's freezing out there. PGE, you are really hurting me. I live in a 2-bedroom townhouse. Ouch, ouch, ouch. My December bill soared to $473, a $300 increase from the month before. And my January bill was even more. I dread to see what February will be. PGE, it's freezing out there. Where's your heart? The executives need to part with raises and bonuses this year. That'll lower the cost of electricity for your customers. It's freezing out there. PGE, it's not too late. You don't have to fail as an entity. Quick, send out rebate checks for electricity. PGE, it's freezing out there. Where's your heart? The executives need to part with raises and bonuses this year.
Thank you. Nina Serrano's poem was published on March 29th of this year.
Is she ready?
I'm ready. This poem is called Freedom Day. Freedom Day. What an adventure. We pulled out of the driveway with the car stuffed with all the boxes and bags that were piled up in the garage. Boxes still unpacked from our move-in 6 years ago, and huge black plastic bags full of unwanted giveaways and old clothes, and a discreet bag of electronic waste that just didn't work anymore. The little car was packed in tight, with just enough room for us to sit in front. It was easy to spot the other cars en route, pickup trucks filled to the rim with old toys, bicycles, car parts, and whatnot. Teams of people waving us in, indicating where we should go. You didn't have to get out of your car. There were more teams of people showing you where to unload your loads. What a mobilization of people, equipment, dumpsters, and trucks. All about too much stuff. That doesn't even count that most of our neighbors have to park on the street because their garages are full of stuff. Stuff is stuffing our lives. All along the highway sides, more storage units are being built to put all the stuff in. We're choking on stuff, while others do without even a home. Freedom Day helps free us of our societal shame.
Thank you, Nina. Well, I think you can all see why I so deeply enjoy editing this column. Going the distance, not there yet. I get to read all of this. And the images and the tones and the depth and the expressions of reactions to greater forces that are bombarding us, and also proactivity, looking at what is inside us, what will not let us go, and what must come out. It is really a joy to do that. But, and, the hearing of each poet reading their own poem with an introduction that takes us into that process of reflection and creativity is just stupendous. So it is quite a marvel to gather a group together to read these poems and to put them into a context that for many of us we could not guess. So thank you, dear poets, for doing that. I'm going to conclude with a short poem that was just published on the 9th of April. It's called Aftermath, and it is picking up on the theme of what happens when we get back to normal. And then this recoiling that says, normal never was normal, never was just, never was what we want to return to. How do we come through all of this that we are going through and make something new? It's called Aftermath. Give us rich soil where we can bury the foulness of failure, where we can lay to rest the torment of loss, where we can build memorials befitting the eternal span of compassion and justice, affection and commitment, where we can plant the green seedlings of reconciliation, reconciliation to our past and our future. Thank you, and let's unmute and just be able to give some sound appreciation for what we have heard and what we have read today.
Yay.
You, Mary Susan.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mary Susan.
Thank you.
Gathering us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's been a mutually rewarding process. It's just great. And
Thank you.
I certainly treasure all of the poems that you have sent in, and give a special appreciation for those that you have read today.
Thank you.
Nancy?
All right, I want to turn things back over to Jan and where we go from here.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. It was very inspiring. I really appreciate everyone coming. The AAUW appreciates it, and maybe we'll do it again next year. We have a lot to say.
Right. We can all go out and enjoy the sunshine now, right?
Yeah.
A question. A question. A question.
Sure.
Can we do this for the AAUW when your term is up, Mary Susan?
I'm not the person to ask for that. I would think we'd have to ask.
Of course we can. Of course we can. I'll be the president again, the co-president again next year. So whoever the person is, we can do it again. Yes.
AAUW has a long history of sponsoring a poetry reading across many years.
I'm glad to hear that you want to do it again, Claire. I would like to do it again too. It's wonderful. Very inspiring, and we'd love to do it again next April.
But will we still have the column?
Oh, well, the column started.
Can someone ask their housemate to mute their TV, please?
Okay. The column started before I was Poet Laureate, and I intend it to continue. So yes, keep sending those poems or short prose writings in. It's been just an inspiring time for me, and it's wonderful to be able to help give voice to what you want to say, and say so brilliantly. And I say that looking over on the screen to Roger, who is my technical assistant, shall we say, who puts it into the right kinds of format. And I'm hoping, Roger, that you are willing to continue this adventure with me.
Well, maybe Mary Susan, you and I can do it again next year if the poet laureate doesn't want to do it. We can do the same type of thing next year. Mary Susan seems like she knows how to do it, so it doesn't have to be the poet laureate. If Mary Susan
Okay,
wants to do
but
it.
you never know. There will be a new poet laureate by next year, and whatever that person intends to do or wants to do, we can work with.
Good. We'll be looking forward to seeing everybody.
Oh, boy.
Okay, good to see. In
Okay.
particular, the people we don't see all that often, Akila. Hope your healing continues, and good to have folks who are First Tuesday regulars, but who have not been writing for Going the Distance. Diane, I see you as one of those, and all of this configuration of regulars.
I live on the other side of the bay. Can I
Yes.
write something for it?
Sure.
Lives on the coast.
Yes.
I live in Las Vegas, so I guess so.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, our sense of community has expanded and developed. And although this column is printed in a local newspaper, I send out by email the columns to a number of email groups. If you want to be on that list, I will add you because I have your email address. And if you want to send me
And
stuff,
just whatever
send me
the
stuff.
information is about submitting things, I'd really appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, I will do that.
And by the way, we recorded it, and I posted it on the I will post it on the Benicia Vallejo AAUW. I put that link in the chat, and so if you want to look at the chat for the link, it's up towards the top. There's a link to the recording if you want to look for the recording. Otherwise, you can go to the Benicia Vallejo AAUW website, and it will show a link there too. Tom, will you?
I look forward to seeing more than half of you here today on the 23rd, Shakespeare's birthday. We're going to rock Benicia.
I'll
'cause
be there.
Benicia rocks. Yeah. All right.
In person or in?
It is a live event. We're going to hold that in place as long as we possibly can without endangering anyone.
At
It'll be a
Benicia.
bookshop, Benicia.
Yes, I'm sorry. And that is to say, because it may be an ongoing venture, so I just want you to know that I will try to keep it going live as long as we can.
You keep calling me Lucy, Kate. I'm gonna call you Lucy. I'm gonna call you Lucy.
Anyone else want to talk? Tom, where is that event going to be?
Bookshop Benicia, 636 First Street, right downtown.
On the 23rd, you said?
Yes, 23rd, 6 p.m. sharp. 3-minute limit. You can read as many poems as you wish in 3 minutes. And we have no theme and no content limitation. We just want to feel good and be together and read to anyone that will come.
Mary.
Thank you. I put it in the chat already, but I just wanted to announce that the Benicia Library Board is looking for the next poet laureate. Thank you for your service, Mary Susan. Of course, you'll still be around, so we won't miss you, but we will miss your particular slant that you've put on the poet laureate job, and a wonderful job you've done, but we're looking for the next person. So you have to be a Benicia resident to apply, and the application and the information is on the Benicia Public Library website under Poet Laureate, logically enough. So I hope you'll spread the word.
Great job. I highly recommend
it. Yes, several veterans here.
Several veterans. Johanna, Tom, Mary Susan.
And then
good company settings, all. Yeah.
Yeah. Juanita,
was
Kathy, Dana.
Yes. And we have some hosts here amongst us as well who are listening, which is really wonderful. So welcome and thank you to you hosts who keep poetry in the air all over the Bay Area and beyond.
And I just want to say how happy I am that in the last years, I co-host Coastside Poetry, by the way, which nominally is Half Moon Bay, but I mean now is like in the air, it's in space. And we've been seeing more and more folks from your side of the water joining us, which is lovely. Yes. So keep coming.
Yes, and
I'll keep coming here.
The links to that event are part of our monthly calendar of events. So you can find it there.
What,
receiving that.
Sorry, what night usually is that and what time?
The second Tuesday of every month. And if you go to our website, it's just coastside poetry, all one word, .org, then all the information is there. So
Great, thanks.
Very pleasant reading.
Okay.
So it's great. It's a lovely community. And so it's a pleasure to keep it going. It's been like almost 6 years, 5.5 years, I think.
Yeah, that's a big
Fun time. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kathy Dana, Alameda.
Yay.
Yeah.
A super friendly group.
Yeah. Also one of those laureates, which can't be pluralized.
That's right. Well,
Yeah.
I consider myself, well, I hope I'm an honorary Venetian.
Yes.
You are.
Hey, all it takes is being here, and here you are. And she'll be back again, I do believe, on the 23rd. Correct?
I will.
All right.
In person.
Yes, wonderful. Do you want to tell them what your group is and when it meets quickly?
Okay, a lot of you have been there. Laureate Island Poets, first Wednesday on Zoom. And then we have a workshop second Thursday. And if you're interested in being featured, you could email me at kathydana@gmail.com. So we'd love to have you.
Right. And that's another listing that comes out every month for your convenience. And glorious poetry.
Yeah, your calendar's awesome, Mary Susan. You're really covering all the missing bases too.
Well, we needed that connection when everything went into Zoom.
Yeah, big time. Thank you.
All right. I'd say let us go and enjoy this beautiful day. And it has been made even more beautiful by your presence.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jan.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Hope to see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.